Great. Thank you, Mr.
On
Chair.
to Mr. Lewis for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you to all the witnesses this afternoon for your testimony. We certainly appreciate it. I just have 4 questions, Madam Chair, and I do want to say to Mr. Shevchenko, as did my colleague, Mr. Virani, earlier on, our hearts are definitely with you all. Mr. Shevchenko, you had mentioned earlier on that your labor force, and I apologize, sir, I want to say you said 82% or 89% was still retained, and if my numbers are a little bit off here, I apologize, but I believe it to be true that about 4.5 or so million Ukrainians have fled, and I quite frankly don't blame them. I wonder, Mr. Shevchenko, how has that affected the labor force in Ukraine?
Dramatically. Well, that specific number, 89%, was for one sector, which is IT or ICT. And that just tells you that we cherish our good IT specialists with their laptops just as much as our brave warriors with the weapons. But when it comes to the labor market in general, as of the moment, up to 15 million Ukrainians out of 47 had to change their location. It's the biggest relocation of citizens in such a short time in the history of Europe. There has been nothing in the history of the continent of this scale. Think about 15 million Ukrainians who had to change their location. Having said that, there are so many Ukrainians who, even under these circumstances, they try to do their work, no matter where they are at that moment. And when you look at the Ukrainians who had to flee abroad, they try to be useful there, they try to find job, and it's a very good example of how to behave in such a situation.
Thank you very much for the clarification on the numbers, Mr. Shevchenko, and back to you, sir, through you, Madam Chair, to the witness. So I'm just curious then, with regard to grain and an understanding that Ukraine is somewhat of a breadbasket, as is Canada, for the world's food supply. And just to stay on that line of questioning, what about the farmers then? And so if they're fleeing, how is grain being produced? And what about the labor market on our farms or on your farms?
Well, the farmers that are in the territories occupied by the Russians cannot do anything right now. The same goes for the battlefields. But in the other parts of the country, they have started their farming season, and we want them to do that. It's very important. And if we talk about the food security situation, there is a major destruction with the Ukrainian and Russian crops production, and also we should think about potash and about that part of the food supply chain. I think that creates some new opportunities for Canada. And I think it's a major global challenge that we should think together about.
Thank you, Mr. Shevchenko. Final question, Madam Chair, through you to the witness. I know farmers here in Canada are really feeling the pinch on fertilizers. If you can get it, you're paying a whole bunch more money. And so I'm just curious, sir, what about fertilizers for your farmers? What about just the grain to plant the fields? What does that look like, and what can we do to help?
It is a major challenge. In this part of the world, a lot of fertilizers and potash have been coming from Russia and from Belarus. And that is not the market where we would like to buy anything from right now. So it is a challenge. It is a global challenge. And again, I think it's one of the fields where Canada can be a very important voice.
Thank you, Madam Chair.